I think we were set to start at 10 o'clock sharp, and this is precisely 10 o'clock. Just a few announcements and also just to welcome all of us to this meeting, which is a country strategy and program evaluation virtual workshop for Malawi, and we had the just as a preliminary requested that when you are logging in, perhaps you should start with your organization. So if you are from the IFAD, you know, Independent Office of Evaluation, for example, you say IFAD EO, and then you put your surname, so that we are able to know who is around and from which organization. So far we have got for the two participants, and I think the number should swell to around 70 in a few minutes time. So basically that's how we are going to proceed. I will want to also indicate that we have a program which is going to run up to 12 o'clock sharp, and the program is basically in 3 parts. We have got the opening of the workshop, so we'll have a few opening remarks. We will have opening remarks from the Treasury, that's the Ministry of Finance here in Malawi. Then we'll have got statements from the ministries of local government. We also have a statement from the Ministry of Agriculture here in Malawi. And then we'll have an introductory statement by the Director of Independent Office of Evaluation for IFAD. And we also have a statement by the Associate Vice President of the Program Management Department for IFAD. Thereafter, I think at something around 10:35, we'll have a presentation by Joanna from the Independent Office of Evaluation. And thereafter, we'll have a plenary discussion questions. I should indicate that at that particular time, when we have a plenary discussion, for those that have got questions, I will request that you post your questions in the chat box, and then we will get the responses. And then also, if you have a comment, you can also post it in the same. There will be, of course, a few plenary discussants that will be picking them. And then thereafter, we'll have future direction for IFAD country program. I think this will take us around the 20 minutes. That's from 11:30 to 11:45. And then we'll have, again, closing remarks by the Director of Independent Office of Evaluation and the Secretary to the Treasury. I should, at this juncture, make mention of key dignitaries that have joined us. We have the Secretary to the Treasury, that's Dr. McDonald Mafutamare, who is with us. And then we also have the Principal Secretary for Local Government, Dr. Esme Kainja. We also have the Director of Engineering Services, Dr. Geoffrey Mamba, who is from the Ministry of Agriculture. So that's key dignitaries from the government side here in Malawi. From the IFAD side, we have got the country director for Malawi, Dr. Ambrosio Barros. We also have the regional director, Ms. Sarah Bunu, for East and Southern Africa. And then we have the director for Independent Office of Evaluation, Dr. Indrian Naido. And then we also have the Vice President for IFAD Program Management Department, Dr. Donald Brown, and we are very honored to have him. We also have Joanne, who is going to make a presentation, and at the background, we are joined by colleagues and staff from the Independent Office of Evaluation. So I've just been told that The Secretary to the Treasury is yet to join, and I'll seek the indulgence of the members that we still proceed, and when he joins, I'll request that he makes all right. I will ask that once he joins, he makes a statement. I'm getting assured that he will join. He will join shortly. So I've just asked the colleagues from the Ministry of Finance that he should make a statement along the way, especially in the first 20 minutes. At this juncture, let me ask the representative of the Ministry of Agriculture, Engineer Geoffrey Mamba, to make a statement on behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Lombe, and also colleagues from the IFAD side. I'm so delighted to sit in the shoes of my PS. Apologies on his behalf. There's a president's function today, and this president's function concerns agriculture, so there's no way he could be out of that place. So he is attending the president's function. So apologies once again. On the part of the Minister of Agriculture, when we look at independent evaluations, we look at an item like a mirror. We are always directed on where we are failing. We are also directed on the way how we can proceed and move forward. You know, as we try to implement our Agenda 2063, the main thing there is to do with agricultural productivity and commercialization. So IFAD, for instance, is assisting us through PRIDE. IFAD is also assisting us through SAP. And these are movers within the agricultural sector that can increase the capacity of our farmers to produce more, even in the wake of calamities such as increased the frequency of floods and droughts. Recently, as you can recall, we have had the Cyclone Anna, which has destroyed quite a number of infrastructure, including irrigation schemes. And also in the recent past, we have had the droughts. So there is a real need for support from development partners such as IFAD as we move forward. But at the same time, we also have to ensure that as a ministry, we implement our projects and programs, especially those that are funded by IFAD, by following the right procedures and rules that come from our development partners. So we are so excited in this instance to listen to the IFAD team to get the reflections on how we are implementing the agricultural activities. But we are so open as we move forward with the agriculture agenda that we can ensure that our farmers and our officers are capacitated and that we do more on infrastructure development as well as general agricultural development. So you indicated, Bonalombe, that we should be having the Secretary to the Treasury. So I wouldn't want to take much of your time and the time of everybody, but to wish each one of us the best as we engage in this conversation. Thank you so much. Back to you, Bonalombe. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mamba, for your statement on the ministry, on behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture, and I would also want to confirm that colleagues from programs that are funded by IFAD in the country, I see the coordinator for farms, SAP, but also PRIDE have joined. And in a special way, we also have the president of Farmers Union of Malawi, Mr. Frighton Jormole, who has joined us as well. At this juncture, I would also want to recognize the presence of Mr. Nation Soya, who has just joined. I will confirm with him to make a statement shortly, but let me request Mrs. Dr. Esme Kainja to make a statement at this juncture on behalf of the Ministry of Local Government. Dr. Kainja, thank you.
Good morning. I am Chris Chumia. I will read the statement on behalf of Dr. Esme Kainja because unfortunately she has other engagements, so she's not able to be with us. I don't know, can you hear me? Just for confirmation.
We
Hello?
can hear you perfectly well. We can hear you perfectly well. Thank you. Please.
All right.
Yes.
So my apologies on behalf of Dr. Kainja, but I will read the statement on her behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, Malawi as an agricultural country considers IFAD as an important strategic partner. As a country, we express our heartfelt appreciation for continued support by IFAD to enhance agricultural development in Malawi in order to reduce levels of poverty and food insecurity, particularly in the rural and poverty-stricken regions of Malawi. IFAD's contribution has enabled us to reach the most isolated and poor communities. Distinguished delegates and participants, in line with the Malawi 2063 agenda, IFAD has focused exclusively on rural poverty reduction, working with the poor rural populations in Malawi to eliminate poverty, hunger, and malnutrition, raise their productivity and incomes, and improve the quality of their lives. The support has helped in implementing several projects in different natural, socio-economic, and cultural environment. The government of Malawi, through the Ministry of Local Government, implemented an IFAD-funded program called the Rural Livelihoods and Economic Enhancement Program, RIP, an agricultural investment program which focused on strengthening commodity value chains and enhancing the regulatory and institutional environment to make it more conducive to rural commercial development. RIP's overall goal was to sustainably improve the incomes of economically active poor rural households engaged in the production, processing, and marketing of selected agricultural commodities by advancing their integration in the emerging commercial sector. RIP aimed at strengthening value chains and improve linkages of farmers to value chains by establishing more efficient production, transport, storage, processing, and marketing systems for target commodities, thereby expanding local economic activity and employment. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the government of Malawi, in collaboration with IFAD, developed the Country Strategic Opportunities Program, COSOP, running between 2016 and 2022, and agreed to work together in transforming Malawi's agricultural sector in terms of promoting equitable and sustainable increases in agricultural growth and poverty reduction based on higher productivity, commercialization, and smallholder farmer income for improved livelihood, food security, and nutrition and overall resilience. Currently, Malawi government, through the Ministry of Local Government, is implementing the Transforming Agriculture through Diversification and Entrepreneurship Trade Program in 11 districts, focusing on 7 value chains, namely groundnuts, soybean, sunflower, Irish potato, dairy, beef, and honey. This program will enhance value chain commercialization and add value to the food security aspect of our mandate. The program is also aiming at reducing hunger and malnutrition, thus contributing to the poverty reduction struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our sincere hope that IFAD will not close ties with Malawi to ensure that the investment in sustainable food security, the investment in sustainable food systems to end hunger by 2063 is well addressed. The Malawi government wholeheartedly support programs funded by IFAD in order to attain the objective of eliminating poverty, hunger, and malnutrition, and increase agricultural productivity and incomes and improve the quality of lives of rural populations. As always has been, the IFAD approach of engaging smallholders in the mitigation process is our motto, and we invite IFAD to continue supporting mitigation initiatives, not only for Malawi, but also to other worldwide poor countries. With these few remarks, I thank you for your attention and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chiumia. Ms. Chiumia is the Director of Rural Development in the Ministry of Local Government. So thank you so much once again. Colleagues, I would also want to confirm that we are joined by some partners from different NGOs and private sector. We also have some government personnel in the districts. I would want to extend a welcome to them on behalf of the organizers. We are privileged that Secretary of the Treasury, Dr. McDonald Mafuta has joined us, and I would want to seek his indulgence to make a statement now on behalf of the Ministry of Finance. Thank you so much, Dr. Mafuta. Thank you. All right. I think he had just joined, but it seems we can't see him now. We had arranged with the Mr. Nation Sawyer from the Ministry of Finance to make a statement on his behalf. So I'll ask Mr. Nation Sawyer to come in and make a statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Directors of Ceremonies. I indeed apologize from the Secretary to the Treasury. I hope once he's ready to join, maybe he can pick it from there. So I will read on his behalf a statement that he was supposed to make. First of all, we want to acknowledge the presence of various dignitaries present here, beginning with the Associate Vice President of IFAD, Mr. Brown, Madam Sarah Bunu, Principal Secretary, Local Government, Dr. Kainja, Country Director for IFAD, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia, Dr. Ambrosio Barros, the Director for IFAD Independent Office of Evaluation, Mr. Naido, IFAD officials, government colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to make the opening remarks for this very auspicious event, the National Workshop for IFAD Country Strategic Program and Evaluation. First and foremost, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Malawi, His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Makati Chakwera, and indeed on behalf of the people of Malawi, I wish to express our profound gratitude to the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, for the various interventions aimed at improving the livelihoods of Malawi rural people. IFAD has been a long-standing and reliable partner for Malawi since 1981 and has made various interventions that have helped improve the living standards of rural populace in Malawi. It is Malawi's government wish that this relationship is sustained and IFAD continues to support Malawi. Associate Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, this is the first country-level CSPE conducted in Malawi, and it is covering the period 2011 to 2020. During the third period, IFAD supported a total of 7 projects. The combined financing of these projects, including contributions from government of Malawi, private sector, project beneficiaries, is around about $500 million United States dollars. 3 of the projects closed and 4 are ongoing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this CSP presented the perfect opportunity to assess the results and performance of the 7 projects as well as ongoing country strategic opportunities program, COSOP, for the period 2016 to 2022. Further, the expectation that findings and recommendations from the CSP will inform the structure and strategic focus of the next COSOP. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this workshop is to discuss and validate the findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the CSP. As can be seen, therefore, the importance of this workshop cannot be ever emphasized. As we are discussing, it is imperative to keep in mind that the majority of the rural people in Malawi are still poor. It is Malawi government hope that cooperative partners like IFAD will still come in to address this. With these few remarks, it is my honor and pleasure to declare this workshop officially open. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nation Sawyer, for the statement read on behalf of the Secretary of the Treasury, Dr. McDonald Mafutamare. We are so grateful. At this juncture, I would really want to, in a special way now, ask the Director for Independent Office of Evaluation, Dr. Indrian Naido, to make an introductory statement on behalf of the Independent Office of Evaluation. Dr. Naido, please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Distinguished representatives of the Government of Malawi, representatives of IFAD, partner institutions and international organizations, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be part of this virtual national workshop organized by the Independent Office of Evaluation of IFAD in collaboration with the Government of Malawi. This workshop follows the finalization of the independent country strategy and program evaluation and provides an opportunity to share and discuss the main findings and recommendations with the government, IFAD, and other stakeholders and partners. I would like to start by expressing my appreciation to the Government of Malawi and to the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Agriculture, and executing agencies for the collaboration on this evaluation. Our appreciation goes to the project teams and partner organizations for sharing insights, supporting field visits, and patience in responding to requests for data and information from the evaluation team. I would also like to recognize the support of the IFAD Program Management Department, in particular, Mr. Donald Brown, Associate Vice President, Ms. Sarah Mbangu, Regional Director of East and Southern Africa Division, Mr. Ambrosio Barros, Malawi Country Director. Finally, I would like to thank the evaluation team led by Ms. Johanna Penez, Lead Evaluation Officer, who was ably supported by a team of national and international consultants. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2021, the Independent Office of Evaluation of IFAD conducted the first country-level evaluation in Malawi. The objectives of this evaluation were to assess the results of the performance of ongoing Country Strategic Opportunities Program, COSOP 2016, and generate findings and recommendations for new COSOP in 2022. Malawi is a low-income country. High poverty persists. More than half of the country's population was moderately or severely food insecure in 2020. Against this background, the partnership between IFAD and the government remains highly important to reduce poverty, food insecurity, and enable inclusive and sustainable rural transformation. Since 1981, IFAD has provided US $350.5 million lending, contributing to a cumulative of $652.4 million in financing for 14 programs, 4 of which are ongoing. The portfolio supports rural poverty reduction and agricultural development by investing in a range of activities and sectors. Moving forward, it is my sincere hope that this evaluation will contribute to improving the effectiveness of the strategic partnership between the Government of Malawi and IFAD. Let me now highlight a few key findings. The evaluation found that country programs has been comprehensive and consistent in addressing key issues faced by smallholder farmers in Malawi. Crucially, it addressed high vulnerability low productivity and food insecurity as a result of unsustainable land use and monocropping cultures, with focus on maize production. The country program has actively promoted gender equality and women empowerment, encouraging participation of women in all activities and promoting household methodologies to address root causes of inequality and power imbalances. Furthermore, climate change adaptation and nutrition were mainstreamed in the program. However, the evaluation also pointed out at some areas that deserve attention. Firstly, the CSPE found that poverty and food insecurity are deep-rooted and widespread in the districts targeted by IFAD's country program. Related to this, projects have achieved significant increases in productivity through provision of technology, inputs, and irrigation. Nonetheless, in most cases, these gains were eroded soon after project completion. Secondly, the project had limited achievements in diversifying production systems and securing reliable market access for smallholder farmers. Food remains the most important expenditure item for smallholder farmers. Third, integration of livestock into production systems had a positive effect on food security and nutrition. The evaluation concludes that food security and climate change resilience are the paramount challenges that the country program has to address more effectively. Moving forward, IFAD would have to further enhance its support to sustainable and diversified production systems and take decisive steps to resolve the ongoing implementation challenges. To this aim, realistic implementation planning and effective oversight are of paramount importance. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of its ongoing decentralization, IFAD will establish a stronger country presence. For the new COSOP, this will open opportunities for enhanced engagement with government, development partners, and other stakeholders, and for addressing performance issues through continuous follow-up with implementing partners. For the new COSOP, IFAD needs to engage with its partners in the development of concrete strategies to address the persistent performance bottlenecks and enhance the results, sustainability, and impact of its operations in the country. Now that we can gain a better understanding of future opportunities and challenges, it is my genuine hope that this evaluation will provide the foundation for strengthening country-level ability to monitor, collect, analyze, and translate data into knowledge that can support inclusive and sustainable rural transformation. I thank you for your attention and wish you well for this workshop.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naido, indeed for the comprehensive remarks, the remarks that are going to shape the deliberations for today's workshop. We want to thank you so much for that. We can now comfortably confirm that the Secretary to the Treasury has joined us, and I would want to request him to just greet the team. The remarks have already been made by Mr. Nation Sawyer on his behalf, but since he's around, it will be an honor just for him to greet the team and also welcome once again the dignitaries to this virtual workshop. Dr. Mafuta Male, please, welcome.
Thank you, moderator. In fact, I know that my remarks have already been submitted, but just to welcome the members and wishing them a very good workshop, a successful workshop. I had a slight problem in terms of connecting, so the technicians came in time to my rescue. But just to thank you, the IFAD team, and indeed our own government officials on the deliberations that are going to take place. To be straight to the issue, I wanted to thank IFAD mainly because these programs obviously are very important in the eyes of government, as they always deal with the straight to the people that are in need of the such support. So IFAD programs have always been regarded highly because the interventions are really aimed at improving their livelihoods, and the support, the interventions really go direct to the people of Malawi, especially those that are in the rural areas. So apart from what my statement really said, I think the emphasis we as in government always see is the model with which the IFAD programs are implemented in Malawi. It is very supportive of especially the rural people. And if you see the reaction of people, I think IFAD programs are well known amongst the majority. So it's a very good model that we always cherish a lot in government. And therefore, such assessment of progress in terms of how we're implementing these programs in Malawi will always be good, because it is actually assessing how much impact we have and also looking at the challenges and finding solutions going ahead. So I think this kind of workshop is really welcome on the part of government, because it gives us a picture of where we were and where we are going to. So I think just to wish all members here a very good workshop, and looking forward to the successful completion, as well as the results and recommendations that we can then work on going forward. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Secretary of the Treasury. And indeed, we were honored that you still joined the meeting. We look forward to your closing remarks also at the end of the workshop. At this juncture, allow me to, in a special way, and being my singular honor, to invite the Associate Vice President of the Program Management Department of IFAD, Dr. Donald Brown, to make the statement on behalf of IFAD. Dr. Donald Brown, you are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Honourable Secretary for joining and making a few remarks now, and thank you to the Director of the Independent Office of Evaluation for his remarks, but also all the work of the Independent Office of Evaluation on this important evaluation. But also my thanks at the beginning to the Government of Malawi, not only for hosting this workshop, but for the important partnership that IFAD has with the government. So I'm very happy on behalf of IFAD's management to be with you today and to hear about the evaluation. As mentioned in the report, we've achieved significant results in Malawi with the government over the past decade, and that is very much down to the strong collaboration with government under our development partners. I hope at this workshop we can work together to assess the findings and discuss how best to respond to the recommendations. None of the achievements noted in the evaluation could have been reached without a strong process of collaboration and partnership and lots of hard work. The new country strategy will be sent for our approval or for approval of our executive board in September this year. And the regional director and country director will explain later in detail how the recommendations from the evaluation will be reflected in the new country strategy. That said, I'm pleased to highlight that the launch of the new country strategy will also coincide with the launch of our new country office in Malawi and the relocation of the country director to be based in Malawi from about August this year. This increased country presence will help us to respond more effectively to the evaluation recommendations and enhance our impact in the country by working hand in hand with government and partners on a daily basis. In terms of the evaluation itself, I was pleased to note an improved performance in several areas, for example, on targeting, relevance, outreach to women, and an increased focus on climate change adaptation, natural resource management, nutrition. Particularly pleasing was the use of lessons over time to drive these improvements. We regularly talk about generating and integrating lessons into our work, so it's good to see some concrete examples of this in the country portfolio. Nevertheless, despite some of these promising findings, there's much more we need to do together, and I agree that we still need to do more on climate change adaptation, strengthening land tenure, and addressing the barriers to women's empowerment. and that we should increase the coherence of our activities as we work toward these objectives. In terms of project management, I also note the need to work with government to address remaining issues on M&E implementation arrangements in government institutions, and I look forward to a discussion later to see how we move this forward. And this very much relates to the recent IOE report on government performance, so I think there's lessons there for us too. And we're well aware of the challenges we face in driving rural transformation in Malawi, challenges that are restricting the performance of the agriculture sector and causing poverty rates to remain high. And in the new country strategy, we particularly need to increase our focus on harnessing the potential of Malawi's rapidly growing young population, where 81% are aged below 35. We must address the lack of decent job opportunities in rural areas for young people, which means they often run informal, low-profit businesses or move to the cities and towns. We must also ensure that the country's recovery from COVID-19 continues and that we mitigate the worst impacts of the war in Ukraine. And I understand from the country team that smallholders are already suffering from increasing costs of inputs caused by the war, among other issues, and coordinated efforts need to continue. As you may know, IFAD recently launched a new crisis response initiative to respond to the conflict in Ukraine, and Malawi is one of the priority countries for potential support pending contributions from donors. In-depth discussions are underway to mobilize more resources, and we hope to be able to mobilize enough to also be able to include Malawi, but we'll have more news in due course on this. So in closing, I would just like to thank again the government and the Office of Evaluation for this important report and our other partners for joining us today. I know with our continued collaboration, we can help rural Malawians to face up to the various challenges that they face in their livelihoods, but also the opportunities that are there that we need to grasp. And I look forward to working together on the new country strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice President, for your remarks, and indeed for comprehensively confirming some of the issues that are indeed going to be highlighted in the course of the discussions today. I think you mentioned of the need to increase climate change adaptation. The remarks in concordance with also the sentiments that the President of IFAD, expressed in the Rural Development Report for 2021, which is fostering food systems for rural prosperity. Issues of climate change, issues of the need for diversified nutrition and human health, but also increased social welfare, ably and have been comprehensively also addressed in that publication. So once again, thank you so much, Vice President. I would want to confirm that we have also been joined by other development partners, and therefore, on behalf of the organizers, I would want to extend our welcome to them. Please feel free to contribute when we open up the plenary. At this juncture, esteemed delegates to this workshop, allow me to invite Ms. Yohan Penals, who is the lead evaluation officer for the IEO of IFAD on CSPE findings, to come in and make her presentation, and the presentation will last the next 15 minutes, and thereafter we'll have a plenary. Once she's done with the presentation, I'll give you guidance on how we are going to conduct the plenary. Over to you, Yohan. It's your floor now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix, and good morning, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen now. I hope you can see it okay. Let me just, okay, right. So I'm going to present you quickly some of the key findings from this evaluation. First, to say we've selected this picture because it epitomizes what the work of IFAD in Malawi. It shows a farmer preparing manure for the field. So it is very much in line with the aims of IFAD supporting sustainable land use and agriculture production system. I'm going to tell you something quickly about the background of this evaluation, the main findings and conclusions and recommendations. Right. First of all, the objectives and scope of this evaluation. So we looked at the results and performance of the ongoing country program, and we wanted to generate findings and recommendations for the new COSOP, which is already shaping up now. The scope of this evaluation included loans implemented since 2011, with an overall IFAD contribution of 271 million. This includes 4 ongoing projects and 3 closed projects. We also looked at the what we call non-lending activities, in particular knowledge management, partnership building, and policy engagement. If Malawi also includes quite a significant amount of grants. Not all of them are country level grants, some of them are regional global grants, but nevertheless, it's quite significant grant support that has gone to the country and which was actually quite important in achieving some of these results. Now, to say something on how we conducted this evaluation, we had a desk review. Of course, we had an e-survey and 123 of you have responded. We had the country mission, which included field visits, but also given the pandemic situation, virtual meetings with farmers groups and virtual focus group discussion. I think most of you have participated in one or the other meeting. We had a final report coming out in the beginning of the year, and this has included comments from government and IFAD management. On the left side, you see the map of Malawi with the districts, and the little flags here, they show the districts that we have been able to cover through either physical field visits or virtual meetings. Right, now I come to the main findings. On relevance. So we found that both COSOPs were quite relevant. They were well aligned with government's development frameworks. And what we could see over the period was also a growing emphasis on commercial agriculture and value chains, which is also in line with what government wanted to achieve. We also see that attention to climate change has increased. But overall, and that's quite important to note, loan investments were relatively low. So a lot of additional grants funding was mobilized to support climate change adaptation. Poverty focus was good. And we saw over the period an increasing attention to ultra poor, vulnerable and food insecurity households, which was also very good. There were some points and gaps, and this would need a bit more attention in the future. The existing government capacities were not always well analyzed, and what the program tried to achieve was not adapted to the available capacities, in particular at district and lower level. At the same time, we saw an increase in the size and complexity of projects, which then often overstretched the existing implementation capacities. I want to show you this graph, which kind of illustrates what I'm saying. So we have here on the left side, the 3 old projects which were closed. The RLIP was already mentioned, IRLAP and RSP. And what you saw in the old style project was more a mix of investments into production, access to markets, rural finance, and sometimes also social services. What we have with the recent generation, the ongoing projects, is that the programs are more specialized or focused on one specific sector. For example, the SAP is focusing on production sectors, and the pharmacy on inclusive rural finance and trade on market access. Pride has a bit more a mix, and most importantly, you see these 3% are on climate change funding. So it's the only project which includes loan funding on climate change. So you see quite a change from diverse projects to more specialized programs, which has quite important implications for the next point I'm going to say about complementarity. At the same time, we saw here the size of the programs. If you look at this graph, that the size of programs have increased quite a lot. Yeah? So this is a transformation and change in the program composition and structure, which is quite important to note. Now, I wanted to say something about coherence. So how does it all fit together, the program? So first of all, we found that the harmonization and coordination with other development partners was still limited. I mean, more could have been done there. The coordination within the IFAD program, though, has improved quite a lot since 2016. Project designs were in principle complementary. So as I've shown in my previous graph, but in fact, in practice, there was often limited overlap on coordination at district level. I'm talking about district level, right? Then grants were quite important, and they're well used to enhance loan interventions. And knowledge management and partnership building was also strengthened, and it supported the achievement of project results. Now, effectiveness, very important, the results. So we had two strategic objectives, which remained similar over the whole period in the two COSOPs. So first, we wanted to make households become more resilient to shocks and enhance food security. And the second objective, that we want to enhance their access to remunerative markets and services. So the impact pathways are described in the middle column. On environmental and economically sustainable agriculture production, we have made quite some progress and quite some good achievements. In particular, productivity improved, and most importantly, what SAP and other programs have been doing recently is the promotion of good agricultural practices and nutrition mainstreaming. That's a real strength of the program. Climate resilient land and water management system was not so successful yet. It also has to do with the pride, which has been taking off more recently. So there were some delays in the design of the irrigation schemes. Then we have the second pathways, improving smallholder farmers' access to financial services. And this has been mainly supported by the FarmSeed program, and which has been it's still early to say, but it has been on a good start. So it has been very successful linking farmers through bank agents, even in remote locations. And then we saw a high share of women in savings group in particular. A main bottleneck which has to be resolved is the limited liquidity of microfinance institutions. So the money has to go to get to these people now that they are well linked. Finally, the last impact pathways is where we have actually fewer results, is the access to markets. This is still a very difficult issue. We see that smallholder farmers are still very dependent on traders. The sales prices are low, and the regulatory and institutional framework, something that trade is going to address now, is still not favorable for smallholder farmers very often. So overall, it's a mixed picture. Just to elaborate further on the productivity gains, we have seen them, especially through the adoption of good practices like ground cover, pit planting, and ridge alignments. But a main issue is that not all practices have been adopted consistently. Some have been adopted and dropped, and others have not been adopted. So that's something to look at more closely. And market access, where it was successful and where it happened, we saw incomes increasing, but overall private sector capacity is still not sufficient to purchase all produce from farmers. And the land plots are overall too small to achieve economies of scale. So that's a big shortcoming. Climate change adaptation practices. This includes practices like crop diversification, introduction of resilient crops, fuel-efficient stoves, and irrigation practices. So this is all very good and very positive and needs to be enhanced. And also the long-term resilience to climate change will depend on farmers maintaining those practices and rolling them out at larger scale. Yeah, so at the moment, what we see is all very nascent and off to a good start, but this needs to come to scale. Done financial services. Yeah, we have a number of them with us today. NGOs and private sector organizations have been very important for IFAD's program in Malawi. They have helped to reach out to really remote locations and very poor farmers and linking them. As I said earlier, there is an issue about the liquidity and the use of accounts. Often accounts are established and opened, but they're not really used, and money, and money has to come in. So there is still unfinished business here. Now, coming to impact, our director in his speech already hinted on impact. That's really something that requires more attention. We have seen productivity gains, but often they eroded as soon as farmers stopped receiving inputs from the projects. So that is something that needs to, we need to think beyond the project immediate support. Because we had this limited impact, in particular with diversification of production system and reliable market access. For these same reasons, also food security remains an issue. Although we have evidence that food security has improved for some households, overall the problem can also only be resolved if we manage to improve the production systems more significantly and ensure market access in a sustainable way. Finally, on the farmers groups and voter user associations, that is a strength of IFAD again in the program, in the country program, and they still have to gain formal registration and need to be further empowered vis-a-vis traders as well. And when we talk of market access, so farmers need to be able to negotiate good prices as well. Right. Gender was a strength of the program, the Associate Vice President also noted it. I mean, this is really a strength of the program. A lot has been done there. We have good outreach to women. We introduced innovative methodologies, household methodologies for some to transform intra-household and power dynamics. And but we need to get more evidence on transformational changes. And that's something that needs to be documented and observed more systematically. Most importantly, we would like to see some changes in gender division of labor and women's workloads. Focus on youth has also increased, also something to write home about. Social capital of youth has increased through interventions, but we still have a limited number of youth groups. So youth is there in numbers, but they're not well organized, and that for these reasons they were sometimes difficult to target. Now I'm coming to the conclusions and recommendations. Overall, the Malawi portfolio is really on a positive trajectory. If we looked at the period of 10 years, and we see things have improved a lot and quite continuously. So there was a good continuity and progression of the strategy. We had the transition to larger and more complex projects, which is not a bad thing as such, but there are some, it needs to be tailored to government capacities. We have a large number of initiatives and practices. So a lot of good things have been started. And many of these positive practices, they need to be sustained and further scaled up. Now we come to the challenges for the new COSOP and programs to address. Smallholder farmers, they really face multiple challenges in Malawi, and this actually requires quite a comprehensive approach. And now we have, of course, these programs providing specialized financial services and promoting practices and so on, but farmers need everything. Right, so that's the important message. It is really important that these different interventions are being brought together to get farmers out of poverty and food insecurity. Therefore, food security and climate change resilience remain the overall challenge and paramount challenge which the program has to address. Government. That's another issue, and I would like to take this opportunity that we have government representatives with us. they really would need to step up their role in knowledge management, including M&E, in order to scale up all these successful practices. We have a lot of pilots, but for them to go into scale, government needs to take a leading part really, and become more active. Institutional capacities were the main bottlenecks, undermining efficiency and effectiveness of the program. And here, I mean, especially institutional capacities at district level. Most of IFAD's programs are implemented in a decentralized way. So here is where we have a lot of capacity bottlenecks. So following from this are our 3 recommendations. First of all, we recommend that the new country program and strategy should adopt an explicit approach to addressing chronic food insecurity and malnutrition. It has been there for some time, but I think we think it needs to become more prominent in the country program and more explicit. And the way to achieve it would be diversified and sustainable production systems, more diverse and sustainable production systems. So we are on the right track, but just step up the approach. The second recommendation is we need to develop a strategic approach for enhancing the impact and scale of successful practices initiatives. We see like 1,000 flowers blooming in Malawi. Yeah, so, but we want them to cover larger areas and have a more transformative impact. And for this, we need to have a more strategic approach in monitoring them, seeing why some things work and others don't work, and then take them to scale. The last recommendation is addressing implementation bottlenecks through targeting specific capacity constraints at various levels. As I said, the country program has become more complex and has bigger projects. The important improvement has been that we are working both at central and at local levels, but this is quite demanding to coordinate and implement at local levels. So that's why we're saying there are bottlenecks at different levels. So the bottlenecks at central level are different from the implementation bottlenecks at local level. So IFAD would need to better target, recognize and target them together and in close collaboration with government. So that's Felix, that's so far from my side. Let me just see, unshare, where is this? Stop share. Okay, right. I stop sharing and hand over to you, Felix.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for the comprehensive presentation and indeed for being so elaborate on the recommendations, 3 recommendations, which are also being reflected in the presentation of the previous speakers. We will diverge into details, clarifications at a later point, but at this juncture, I want to open up the plenary discussion. What is going to happen at this juncture is that we will request that those that have got comments to make, they can do so by dropping Farmers Union of Malawi. I think they also hinted on the need for capacity building of farmer-based organizations, and I think this seems to be in line again with the recommendation number 3, which Johan has also made here on the need to address the capacity constraints. I would want to now open up the floor to different people who may have comments, but allow me in a special way to give you some 2 minutes to the president of Farmers Union, who is with us here. I had requested him to be the first to chip in. So if he is still logged in, I see he's still around. Mr. Njoromole, you can come in your absence. If Mr. Nyorongo is coming, he can also come in. Thank you, Mr. Njoromole. You may want to come in, maybe seek a clarification, as the rest of us are sending our comments in the chat. Thank you. All right, Mr. Njoromole is not in now. I think we had him logged in. Jacob Nyolongo, if you are around, please, you can come in. Otherwise, I'll just open the floor for now for comments, but also questions. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, for inviting Farmers Union of Malawi to be part of this very important dialogue in terms of what results we are achieving with the investment that IFAD has been making in Malawi since a long time ago. Actually, it's just today that I've really seen the work and the investments that IFAD has really been putting into this country. I think to respond to the results of the evaluation, I think I would like to first of all agree with the results of the evaluation that have just been presented. To say yes, I think the major issue that I've picked is the issue of sustaining results. How do we ensure that food security is sustained, nutrition is sustained, access to markets is sustained, but also the issue of inclusivity. How do we ensure that women, men, and the youth are included in the outcomes that we are achieving? Obviously, I think there are chronic challenges. Our economy is struggling. We are a low-income economy. And that has an underlying influence in terms of what results we are able to achieve as a country. And already, I think we have external shocks that are already putting pressure on the Malawian economy. The issue that was already raised about the Russia-Ukraine war. And what we are already seeing in terms of the increase in prices of fertilizer, in prices of commodities across the board. And this is a real threat that might actually erode the gains that as a country we have achieved through IFAD investment. So that I think it's a kairos moment that we are actually discussing these evaluation results, but also in the context of the current environment which we are in and the threats that we are facing as a country. I think in my comment, I just, when I heard from Dr. Naidu in his statement about results that we have achieved, but as soon as projects end and then they are quickly eroded. I think it's an area that we really need to reflect on in terms of how can we build institutions and strengthen collaboration and partnerships between, for example, farmer groups and local governance structures, government structures, but also building those relationships that can then sustain the gains that we achieve through IFAD investment. So I just highlighted an issue around strengthening farmer cooperatives, farmer associations, farmer clubs, farmer groups, so that they are able to sustainably provide services to their members. Through investment, for example, I think we saw a lot of investment in infrastructure that can help farm organizations support their membership to access profitable markets. So, for example, we have cooperatives, associations that have warehouse infrastructure already, and some of these are actually, as Farmers Union of Malawi, they are the platform, the strong members that we say, these are the strong members that we have that are actually supporting, already supporting their membership in terms of how they can access markets. The issue of nutrition, I think, which has been highlighted, is an important one, how we ensure year-round availability of food. So looking at the food calendar, how can we strengthen household nutrition? Issues to do around engaging mothers, young girls in food processing, household food processing, integrated homestead gardens. We have local vegetables, high dense food can be produced, but also just around knowledge around nutrition sensitive agriculture, so that communities are able to understand why they are supposed to produce what particular crop for them to have better nutrition for their households. So in short, I think that's the feedback that I can give. But otherwise, I think the results of the evaluation really reflect what is happening on the ground. Thank you, and over.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jacob Nyongo, for that response on behalf of the Farmers Union. For sure, I will ask Joanne to come in with also further clarifications. But I also just want to chip in to say that as we come in, as we reflect, we will have to also focus on exactly what are the key challenges with regard to security and nutrition, food security and nutrition that IFAD should address or could address under the new COSOP, and how could IFAD also support Malawi in response to the national food crisis and emergency situation. So these are some of the questions that that could be answered and we reflect upon jointly. But I heard you, the representative of Farmers Union, also I think you mentioned the need also to enhance food, to enhance availability of infrastructure as one of the potential components to be considered in as far as ensuring that we deal with the multiple challenges that have been highlighted in Nene's in Joanne's presentation. I will just quickly read a comment that we have received from Driana from African Institute of Corporate Citizenship. I think there is a mention of the need to explore possibilities of mitigating high interest rates and the cost of doing business by the private sector, which is affecting farmer-based markets, and the need that we, as well as the other components, we focus on building the capacity of the private sector, so that the private sector is capacitated to undertake different components, such as enhancing access to markets. Thank you so much for that comment. Joanne, you want to come in as I'm picking other comments and reactions from the plenary?
Yes, I mean, I think the comments were very good and very much support what we have said. I mean, I see, and also in some of the written comments, the focus on in making sure that women and youths benefit and participate. I think this is something which we found, and I'm very glad to see that this is being echoed in the audience. And indeed, I would say the cooperatives, and we have and the importance of cooperatives and farmers group is just so important. Farmers are really also vulnerable because they're exposed to all these shocks, market shocks, and natural shocks. So I think this is I can just only highlight again what the previous speaker has said on infrastructure. Yes, this has been part of it. What we saw in some places, we looked at Darlit, which was mentioned on market infrastructure. We saw also irrigation infrastructure is a different issue. I mean, there is infrastructure takes quite some time to implement, There is, it has specific challenges to implement. I would just like to say that. And that again, we come to the bottleneck in capacity, especially at local level. I would just like for everyone to highlight it. Yes, it is very important, but we need to find more efficient ways of implementing. That's what I would say. Over to you, Felix. I see more comments. There was another comment from the private sector, I think, which would be important to share. Over to you, Felix.
All right. Thank you so much. I will go back to one of the recommendations that you meant on the need to enhance and scale up initiatives through a proper M&E system at government level, so that the initiatives at the end of the day are enhanced. I would want to maybe ask him, Mr. Mamba from the Ministry of Agriculture is around, but I also see my brother Rex Barua is also around. He can also comment on that in that regard. I think sharing on the lessons and what could be the reflections on the possibility of enhancing and scaling up initiatives that are introduced by the program. As the Rex and Mr. Mamba are coming in, I would want to read what Mr. Nation Soya has also just posted. From an operation point of view, we are wondering what are the views of Independent Evaluation Office with regard to internal IFAD policies and processes and procedures, and to what extent they affect disbursement and general program effectiveness. I'll give you, Johan, a space, a breather to comment on this one. But at the moment, let me ask Rex and perhaps Mr. Mamba just to come in on the component of scaling up and ensuring sustainability of initiatives that are introduced by the program. Rex, are you ready to come in that regard? And Mr. Mamba, if you're also ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the moderator. I'm Rex Balua, coordinator for SAP. First of all, let me recognize all the members that are in this participating in this workshop. All protocols observed. It's true that first of all, let me agree with the report. I've gone through the report and I'm in total agreement with what has been presented by Johan. As regards to scaling up all the initiatives that IFAD has introduced in Malawi through various programs, indeed it's true. We had a mission very shortly, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where with the mission members, we went around to appreciate on what we have done in the programs. And it was evident that we have achieved a lot, we have done a lot, but where we are lacking is documenting, so that at least other projects that will be coming in the future or others that are ongoing can learn from what we are doing. So it's an issue that we have discussed with colleagues in the Ministry of Agriculture, and indeed I also approached the Department of Planning and Evaluation that we need to sit down and work out on the challenges that we are facing, so that we improve on the M&D, so that as we improve on the M&Ds, others can learn from what has been captured through the system. So I agree that in terms of looking at the issues of M&D, scaling up, and knowledge management, we still have got a long for us to improve, so that at least we do document on the governance issues, operational issues, because there are still more projects coming in, still more programs that are underway, but we still have to learn from what has been achieved in these ongoing programs, or those programs that have really performed well and have closed. So it's an issue that we have taken note, and I hope Mr. Mamba, who is also representing the ministry, will add on something on that. Thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Rex. We have the representative, we have actually the PS for local government, who may also want to chip in on the capacity of the councils and what could be, some reflection points. Miss Dr. Esme Kainja, you can come in on the capacity of local councils. Thank you. All right, you can unmute yourself first. Dr. Kainja.
Yes, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, it's perfectly well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that IFAD is indeed in progress of supporting Malawi government with this program. And for us, we are so grateful because we are at the implementation level in the councils. And I'm also grateful that the transition from one project to another has been very smooth, and we believe that IFAD will continue to transform the agriculture sector in Malawi. And also the gender issue and the youth involvement, yes, because I'm also an expert in that area. Coming to the issue of capacities, I know that in the findings, this was one of the gray areas. And there is indeed that strong recommendation that we need to strengthen this area. My coming is to just assure IFAD and all partners in the program that the ministry is working to change the current status by deepening decentralization, because that's the only way when power moves from the central level of the district to the lower levels, to the lower structures, that indeed the grassroots own the projects. So with the new policy of decentralization, that's the new focus. And I know maybe some of us know that the ministry undertakes local assessment every year, and the results have been progressively, improving. We know that there are also gray areas. But what I can assure you is that we are encouraging or strengthening the leadership at the council. Our assessment has shown that once the district commissioner and the director of planning are deeply engaged in these projects, results improve and they show positive outcomes. So I want to assure IFAD and all colleagues that the ministry is working hard on this, and would also want to know the direction that IFAD will take in order to support us. And the commitment which the government was indicated as if there is a weaker commitment, I wanted to assure you that even the presence of the principal secretaries in this meeting and their involvement in the projects is a testimony that indeed we are on track and following what is happening. And we are also at the Ministry of Local Government strengthening interface meetings between the central level and the councils. So we believe that indeed the outcome of this, the project in the end will bear positive results. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gaija, indeed for that assurance and an indication of the a number of reforms that the councils are undergoing, which will work to the advantage also of the support that IFAD gives. Johan, you want to come in on the issue that Mr. Nation Sawyer raised with regard to the internal IFAD policies and processes,
yes.
which, yes, as I take other more questions. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I've taken note of 2 questions and 1 comment. I'll respond to them. Yes, no, first of all, on this question on internal policies and procedures. Yeah, it is a question. I mean, we did have a lot of delays in the country program, but most of them were not related to IFAD. That I should say. I mean, there was a lot had to do with the recruitment of project staff and approval of infrastructure projects. So it's not really something, it's more on the national side, I would say. Disbursements seem to have been relatively well managed in the Malawi portfolio. So we didn't see a lot of delays ever since we had the more constant, in the old times we did, but once we had a more constant and stable country program manager and also Ambrosio there, I think this has improved a lot. What we did see though, and we've taken note, and I think this is probably what you're alluding to, is the capping of disbursement. This has created some annual capping of annual disbursement. This has created some impression of IFAD not sticking to its commitments or not not being as predictable in its funding. So this is probably the main issue, which I think which has more recently in the last 1 or 2 years affected IFAD's disbursements. What I should say also, I mean, I kind of mentioned it, but again, I've been referring to this large amount of grants that have gone into Malawi. I should also say, I mean, the ability of the country program management to bring in grants and relatively quickly, I mean, for example, from the rural stimulus facility and so on, to alleviate some of the problems which the program has. This was definitely some important contribution again. Yeah, so I think it's and I think I'm sure Sarah and Ambrosio will say more about it in a moment. So overall, I think the IFAD support has been consistent, except with a more recent exception. There was another question on the why would productivity go down? Yes, what we've seen also in our field visits, access to seeds and fertilizer is the main issue. And it is still, and it keeps continuing. It just is very important. And if you look at the World Bank Household Survey, access to seed again is seen as a major problem, negatively affecting productivity. We do have, of course, these adverse weather events and changes, and external shocks which affect productivity. So it is both, right? So it's not entirely under the control of government. There are a lot of external shocks which are also affecting productivity, but there is a general shortage of good seeds, and the access to short seeds, to good quality seeds, remains a problem to be resolved. Finally, I think there's one of the earlier comments which has got lost, which I thought was quite interesting on the private sector. So what was said there is the high interest rates and costs of doing business by the private sector is a major problem, right? And we said the role of the private sector is still not sufficiently strong to assure reliable access to markets. So this is one of the big issues highlighted by the commenter there. And we, of course, there is an expectation that we have, if there's more private sector partners included, then access to markets will improve. Again, under the RLIP, we have seen it disappearing after the project or weakening. So again, it's an issue of how this can be maintained and sustained beyond the project closure. Yes, and there is the comment made, we need a holistic approach to addressing smallholder farmers' challenges, and that includes the farmer sector, private sector development. Yes, very much so. I would fully agree with this comment. I see 2 more comments, but I need the time to read them. Over to you. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Johan. Indeed, there are 2 more comments, but the first one by Dixon Gwende could be an internal reflection. Actually, I'll flash it back to him so that he can make some recommendations. The last one is on the climate change. Especially in the agriculture sector, the investment that have been made. From Ms. Kabazi, I was, which says, however, the current support is only around 3% of the disbursements. I was expecting to see this flagged in the recommendations, but I did not it did not come out. So what are the plans on this important aspect of adaptation? I'll ask you to come in on that question, but I would want Dixon to come in and perhaps also make his own contribution on what would be the way forward when it comes to district level coordination with regard to sometimes the temptation for each program or different programs to be identified independently, because this is also one of the weak spots that have been noted, which has have got an effect on the scalability of some of the initiatives on ground, since each program seems to operate independently and gets identified also independently. Dixon, you want to come in? Thank you.
Thank you, Felix, for according me the opportunity to come in and expound a little bit on the issue of coordination. All protocols observed. Joanna raised a very important thing. The point that she raised actually related to us of how do the various IFAD funded programs are reflected at the district level in terms of coordination. At the district level, we have different approaches that we address the districts. For instance, for FAMSE, we have established what we call district support teams, district implementation and planning support teams. And these teams basically look at what the program is doing, trying to coordinate the activities of the program at the district level, the various players that we bring in the private sector and the NGOs are doing their work. Basically, this team is mandated to have quarterly review meetings with all implementing partners and also undertake field visits on quarterly basis to the activities implemented by the partners. But this ends at that point, focusing on the work that FAMSE is doing. Getting from what Joanna raised, I think we may need to go a little further. Instead of looking and reflecting on the programs at quarterly level of one program at district level, we need to look at a mechanism where this reflection is of all IFAD programs at district level. And if need be, need to look at this monitoring or field visits that actually orients the district teams to be done at quarter level to look at all the activities of IFAD at the district level, other than looking at the activities of one particular program at district level. Probably this could enhance, among other strategies that may be used to enhance the coordination at district level. So I just wanted to chip on that this report indeed is giving a good reflection on how we can improve at the district level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dixon, for coming in to clarify on that. I'll ask Joanne to come in also on the climate change, disbursement, which is indicated has not been fully flashed out in the report. Before I entertain other more questions. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah. No, first of all, to say, I mean, Dixon, that's an excellent suggestion, and this just hits the problem on the head. So definitely very good suggestion, Dixon. Yes, well, there is a comment from Gertrude that of course there is she was missing a recommendation that climate change financing should be increased. Yeah, so I think this is I think this would be a good idea. I mean, we haven't recommended that specifically, but perhaps that's something which Sarah and Ambrosio can also address on what the way forward is. But we highlighted the issue that at the moment there is very little climate change financing included in the loans. It more or less comes in addition and through mainstreaming or through additional support. I would just agree with her observation there. I mean, I can't say anything else. Over to you, Felix.
Thank you so much. I think you've raised a very important aspect, but there is also one more aspect which I think I wanted to flash out, to the plenary, especially to do with the scalability of some of the initiatives I think in the report, there is also a push to the government side, but I think we might have skipped a very important player on ground, and these are the non-governmental organizations or the service providers that we work with on ground. So I'll just ask one of the delegates, I think speaking on behalf of the NGOs, how do we address this aspect of scalability of some of the initiatives that are introduced by the program, besides the role and expectation that we have on the program, but these other players are also permanently present on ground, and maybe they can also share their experiences and their recommendations. Driana Luanda, you would want to come in that regard?
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Lombe, and thank you so much for the presentations and everything that has already been said and all protocols observed. The issue of scalability is something that is actually one of the key areas that we need to look at as we move on to ensure that we are able to target the smallholder farmers right at the grassroots levels in the communities. Our experience is that to reach scale, we need to actually look at the different structures that are also available within the communities, those that are present in those communities. So by targeting those key structures from the government side, from the NGO side, from the civil society side, and the rest of the key structures that are available at community level through the decentralized structures of the government, there's always a likelihood that scale will be reached. But other than that, if we are to target the farmers, then the farmer-based organizations are the key in reaching out scale. Because in most cases, what we have seen is that targeting individual farmers results into a lot of unsustainable interventions where a farmer will choose to leave a specific community to go somewhere else where the specific capacity building will not be used where they have, because they lack a specific platform where they would actually share and also target a lot more. So using the cooperatives and farmer-based organization is also one of the key areas where scale and scalability is also key. So when for example, when you are targeting the cooperatives, even when the capacity interventions goes to half of the cooperatives, the probability of reaching out to the rest of the half, the remaining half is high, because farmers tend to talk to each other, farmers tend to learn from each other, farmers tend to adopt mostly practices that a fellow farmer is actually doing, because they are able to see that this is something that is profitable to them, and this is something that is working within the communities. So in reaching out to scale, farmers tend to actually learn and replicate what fellow farmers are already doing. But if we are to reach out to all the smallholder farmers in the communities, then we have to use the groupings that are already available within the communities, the farmer-based organization, the cooperatives, the associations, the village development committees, the area development committees, among others. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brianna. I think we wanted to hear from your perspective on the, how do you sustain the interventions that are normally introduced by the programs. We are done. We're almost done now with that. I'll just is an aspect of how do we harmonize our initiatives with other development partners, because that has also been flashed out in the report. I would want to ask Mr. James Ntopanyama, who is also part of the country team, but obviously working with different country programs on ensuring that there is indeed coordination with the government, other development partners on ground. James, if you are set, please, you can just chip in and also make your own reflection and recommendation in that regard. James.
Thank you very much, moderator, for giving me this opportunity to make a comment on this. I think one area indeed that needs to be zeroed in is on how do we coordinate, how do we harmonize our approaches as development partners. And therefore, let me say that there is, meanwhile, the donor committee on agriculture and food security, which normally meets every year, that meets every month. That meeting usually does provide for areas of synergies, areas where we have a common approach. Perhaps the missing point is where we take it from there. For donor partners, 1 or 2 donors come together, agree on a framework on how they should proceed in their areas of common interest and common approach, common objective. I think that's an area that needs to be enhanced from the perspective I have seen, because that way then indeed we will minimize the issues of duplication, and therefore we will be able to enhance the resources that are made available to Malawi. So therefore my take is, let donors be able to sit down together and craft how they should approach their areas of common interest. I think that would be the way I would be looking at it. But you have to know that if for the sake, IFAD itself is meanwhile working with its other partners, the ROM-based agencies, FAO and WFP. That is, I think, an example that could be emulated by the other development partners working together. Thank you. Over.
All right, thank you so much, James, indeed for that elaboration. I'll ask Johan also to wrap up the comments. If you have one aspect that you have forgotten, obviously as a moderator, I do not have the privilege of asking a question, but maybe you can also reflect on one more aspect of off-farm interventions, which I think are also very important when it comes to sustainability of livelihoods. But I see a question from Ridwell. Ridwell, you want to come in? I'll give you 40 seconds before I bounce it back to Johan. Thank you, Ridwell.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lombe, and my sincere apologies. I had to join in very, very late. I think almost as you're winding up, I think the meeting. But just to touch on the point that Ntopanyama, I think, was discussing on how development partners can work together. I think on the programming. Let me introduce myself. Redo Msopole from the Ministry of Agriculture. I sit in the Department of Planning. We coordinate investments in the Ministry of Agriculture, but I'm also acting in the National Agriculture Investment Plan, coordination, office. So my interest really is on how the partners can work together. We have experience actually. IFAD does work with other partners in other previous interventions. I can cite, for instance, the ILAD. IFAD, I think, put a resource there and they partnered with the World Bank, as well as I think Ntopanyama touched on the issue of working with the other DCAF members. So in the policy arena, the discussions, the engagements, where the DCAPS engages with the Minister of Agriculture, and they touch on, areas, of interest. But let me, I think, emphasize on the partnering in terms of implementation, of programs. We've just had an experience, I think, where the World Bank coordinated the implementation of ASWAP. There were 5, initially 6 donors that were supporting this program. So it does help quite a lot, I think, in terms of administration and interaction with the DPs. It reduces, I think, in terms of also the transaction costs for the government, and we would really appreciate if there was further engagement to come up with bigger programs that are addressing key areas in the investment plan, other than having small programs. And by saying this, I'm not saying IFAD has been financing small programs. I think, let me be serious, I think IFAD has been putting up quite substantial resources. But I think you also benefit, I think, from the leverage, working together with other partners, coming up with a much bigger program that would be addressing the needs of the and the gaps within the national agriculture investment plan. And we really look forward perhaps to have further engagement in this area. So thank you so much. I came in late, but I think there was a hanging question that I think was raised on the investments to climate change, and I haven't quite gotten it clear in terms of, I think, moving forward. So given the 38 seconds, Dr. Lombe, let me rest here for now.
All right. No,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Redo. I'll ask Johan to wrap up and even chip on that component. Thank you so much, Johan.
Yeah, I mean, the investment in climate change, I would really like to get also Sarah and Ambrosio to respond to what is the, what is the vision there? Are we going to increase? We have highlighted that it's they are relatively slow, given the challenges on relatively low, given the challenges on hand. So what is the perspective there in the new program? That's not really. I would like to add, I mean, the speakers have all very well covered made their points. It's not much for me to wrap up, actually, just perhaps on the point of harmonization. It's the same issue. I mean, it's the same problem that the harmonization faces. It's difficult to make it happen especially at local level, at district level. You see, I mean, that's what we heard quite univocally from districts and also from other partners. Even if there's a commitment at national level, I mean, just making it happen at district level is often very difficult. Yeah. Because of the weaknesses of coordination, and here Dixon's suggestion is, I just want to reiterate again, I mean, that's so important to strengthen coordination, and was very happy that this was mentioned by the previous speaker, that the capacity of councils will also be strengthened. Second, perhaps point just to highlight again, is the important role of NGOs. I mean, for IFAD, they have been so important in achieving what they have achieved. And we should be thankful also for their contribution and cooperation, and also for strengthening farmers groups and organizations, which are so important to bring bring practices to scale. To add to this would be, I mean, bringing practices to scale within the district is one thing. That depends on farmers groups and coordination of districts. But then the second issue remains is the scalability across districts. Yeah, so it is very, very patchy and small scale what we see in IFAD, in Malawi, and that's really the main challenge, and how this can be brought across within districts and across districts, how good practices can be brought to scale. I just want to highlight that again, and also leave it for the new COSOP and the new country program to address those issues. Over from my side, Felix, thanks a lot again from all the speakers. Very good questions and contributions. Over.
Thank you so much, Johan. Indeed, some of the comments will be handled by the subsequent speakers. And at this juncture, allow me to ask the country director for Malawi, Mozambique, and Zambia, Dr. Ambrosio Barros, to also make his reflection, especially on the future direction of the country strategy. Over to you, Ambrosio. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Distinguished representatives of the government of Malawi, distinguished colleagues from IFAD, ladies and gentlemen. First, allow me to thank you all for contributing to the richness of today's discussions. I have been in charge of the Malawi portfolio for the last 4 years, and this important CSPE represents for me as CD an occasion to take stock of where we stand in terms of achievements and lessons in order to be able to define the guiding principles of IFAD's current and future engagement in the country. Over the CSPE period, the IFAD's performance-based allocations for Malawi have significantly increased from 42 million under the IFAD 10 cycle to 75.8 million under the current IFAD 12 cycle. This has led to significant increase in the size of the lending portfolio as well as the size of individual programs. I will now spend a moment to elaborate on how IFAD will embed the CSP recommendation and finding in its programs. While there has been continuity in the thematic focus and the strategic objectives of IFAD's interventions, among the areas that can be improved is the level of coordination between IFAD projects towards the achievement of a country program approach, especially at district level. Until last year, we had no formal mechanism for coordination or integration, but we believe that the centralized M&E system recently introduced will contribute greatly towards increasing coordination between the current program and future designs. It will ensure the optimization of efforts and the scaling up of successful pilots in a more systematic manner. The new COSUP adopted an explicit approach to addressing chronic food insecurity more directly, with the strategic objective 1 being increased agricultural productivity and climate resilience of smallholder farmers. With regard to recommendation 2, develop a strategic approach for enhancing the impact and scale of successful practices and initiatives. The current performance-based allocation will be dedicated entirely to scale up and further develop the good practices and approaches that have proved to work. By the end of IFAD 12 in December 2024, the 4 ongoing programs, SAP, Right, Pharmacy, and Trade, will have benefited from a scaling up phase aimed at deepening promising approaches and practices, such as the graduation approach, targeting ultra-poor people, and the partnership with MFIs and the pharmacy, the sustainable farming practices, the good agricultural practices promoted under SAP and Pride, just to mention a few. Moreover, the scaling up phase will aim at monitoring closely the performance of new initiatives on a continuous base and identify solutions to address bottlenecks swiftly. It will also increase efforts to document and disseminate learnings for more systematic country-level policy engagement. With regard to recommendation 3, address implementation bottlenecks through targeting specific capacity constraints at various levels, actions are being taken for the creation of incentives to attract and retain project management staff, the hiring of dedicated staff for the implementation and monitoring of cross-cutting issues such as gender, nutrition, and climate change. We should envisage for some positions to be working across programs in the form of transversal coordination figures that would further increase the coordination and overall consistency in approach of the portfolio towards a country program approach. The portfolio top-ups funds for pharmacy and Pride in particular will also cover costs of the strengthening of district-level coordination. With regard to climate financing, this is a topic that came quite a few times during this conversation. Please note that under IFAD 11, IFAD had a commitment to ensure that at least 25% of resources across IFAD would go to climate finance. Under IFAD 12, this commitment has increased and it's now to 40%. So the idea is that any new financing, so the top-ups for pharmacy, for Pride, should contribute to that objectives. In addition to that, Pride will benefit from an additional 7 million from ASAP Plus. So we are trying to increase that number and to move away from this 3% that you saw. I very much look forward to seeing these changes being implemented, and the establishment of the IFAD country office in Malawi in a few months will facilitate IFAD's efforts in the country to be brought to the next level. I will personally ensure each recommendation is taken into serious account in our work in the country today and moving forward. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I now allow me to give the floor to my boss, Sarah Bagubunu, who is the IFAD director for the East and Southern Africa region. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ambrosio. So, Honorable Secretary, PS, Felix, the moderator, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, it has been a real pleasure for me to be here today and to take part in this in such a constructive and dynamic discussion on IFAD investments in Malawi. I'd like to start by thanking government representatives and our key partners for attending this workshop today. Please be assured, just as Ambrosio has done, that the insights from the discussion on top of the evaluation itself will be internalized in our work as we move forward. I would also like to reiterate that as a division, East and Southern Africa team strongly welcomes and supports the findings and recommendations of this country's strategic program evaluation. And I thank the Independent Office of Evaluation, particularly Joanna and team, for the extensive efforts in compiling the report and organizing this important workshop. I think the tone was set by the director of IOE when he opened the floor for this. And just a couple of points and observations from my end. I take away from this that natural resource, climate, and environmental management are particularly pertinent for a country like Malawi, given that it ranks 5th in the world on the Global Climate Risk Index. Investments in environmental services to conserve, protect, rehabilitate, and restore landscapes, as well as climate change adaptation and mitigation, will definitely be undertaken. Provision will be made for crowding in environment and mainstreaming climate smart agriculture processes and practices, such as small-scale irrigation, rainwater harvesting, water conservation, as well as considerations for risk transfers through weather index insurance within the wider disaster risk financing framework, which we think is absolutely critical. Since cyclones tropical Idai and Anna, the country program has gained some experience in responding to unforeseen events and further develop this response capacity. So there will be an increased focus on disaster risk management and specifically mechanisms including early warning systems, drought contingency planning, responding to flooding, awareness raising and water management, as well as I mentioned earlier, crop and livestock insurance schemes, all targeted at the decentralized levels to strengthen what we're trying to do there. We'll really try in an attempt to respond to this question around sustainability and the gains that are needed after, as long as we live with COVID, but also in the face of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I think this is a very important point, and we will be looking forward to working with the Ministry of Local Government represented here today to try and see that. While the evaluation notes our progress in the area for climate, we must say that going forward is focusing on resilience for rural Malawians, particularly women and youth. I think my next point is really looking at the point around women. The share of female-headed households in rural areas is 24% compared to 15% in urban areas. 77% of women over 15 years old are employed in agriculture compared to only 68%. So this really also requires us, as IFAD, to program with a gender lens. This is absolutely critical, and we need to narrow those gender gaps if we're going to make gains on productivity enhancement and improvement. Male managed plots produce 25% more than female managed plots in Malawi today. So gender transforming programming will be at the heart of IFAD's new strategy in Malawi. And we are looking to see how we can work with cooperatives, farmer producer groups, and I think some of the earlier speakers mentioned this, to promote positive masculinity across the work that we're doing. Finally, there is and has been a lot of reference to youth and the importance of engaging with them. There has been some successes, pilots, but we want to scale up, as Ambrosio has also mentioned, using and promoting geospatial tools for targeting an M&E, using digital again for e-extension platforms to build on what we have done with financial services, and also in disseminating climate smart technologies. And we hope to partner not only with the private sector, but some of our other esteemed development partners who are participating here today. Before I close, there was a question on off-farm. We look at resilience in the totality of livelihoods in rural Malawi. And we do believe that by combining and promoting value addition, the infrastructure that was discussed and presented here, warehouse storage, building business models with the market, starting with the market, and developing clusters around production basins will be very, very key in reinforcing changes in the food system. So reskilling, retooling, providing young people with the ability to add value is going to be absolutely critical for us as we move forward. So with those words, I would like to pass back to the facilitator. I'd like to thank the government of Malawi for their responsiveness and collaboration during the evaluation, and for their continued support and partnership with IFAD to help improve livelihoods and resilience in Malawi. As mentioned by IFAD's EVP programs, Donald Brown, in his opening remarks, this collaboration has been pivotal to the numerous achievements detailed in the report, and will be even more crucial in implementing the recommendations of the evaluation over the next COSOP cycle and beyond. Thank you, and over to you, Felix.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the remarks and also for the assurance on how some of the recommendations are already being addressed. And also thank you so much, Ambrosio. At this juncture, allow me to request Dr. Indrian Naido, the Director of IEO, to make his closing remarks on behalf of the Independent Office of Evaluation. Dr. Naido, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambrosia, and thank you very much, Sarah. Always a pleasure to work in your region. Distinguished representatives of the government of Malawi, representatives of IFAD, partner institutions, and international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an engaging and well-attended workshop. We had over 80 participants from all sectors, and this really attests to the quality and support of the program and the importance placed on it by both government and partners. The questions posed demonstrate the great interest you have in the program, and while all may not have been answered in this workshop, I'm sure they've triggered discussions moving ahead. I also wish to once again thank IOE, and in particular, Johanna and her team for putting together this program and the report, and Ambrosia for your excellent facilitation. I believe that today's engaging discussion has provided better insights in order to translate the findings and lessons into actions for greater impact of IFAD engagement in Malawi. Given the excellent collaboration thus far among IOE, the East and Southern Africa Division, and the government of Malawi, we hope that this evaluation will pave the way to the preparation of the new country strategic opportunities program between IFAD and the government. As we conclude today's national workshop on the country strategy and program evaluation of Malawi, I would like to reiterate my gratitude to the government of Malawi, especially the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Local Government. Finally, I warmly thank all of you who have participated and shared so generously your views. We hope that today's workshop may spark further exchange and discussion amongst yourselves towards a country program that has a greater impact on eliminating poverty and improving the rural livelihoods for women, men, and youth of Malawi. Also note that this report, as well as the proceedings, will be posted on the IOE website and shared internationally. I do believe it's important for international partners and people who are interested to know not only Malawi, but how the program is evolving and what are the strengths and challenges in that regard. I thank you for your attention and wish you well for the rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naido. And indeed, on my own behalf now, I will be handing over to the representative of the Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Nation Sawyer, to make the closing remarks and indeed to officially close the meeting. But let me, at this juncture, recognize and appreciate Nene, who was working behind, and also Johan for organizing this, and indeed the entire office in a special way. Also to appreciate the Secretary of the Treasury who was with us at the opening of the workshop, but also to appreciate the presence of the Principal Secretary for Local Government and also the representative of the PS for the Ministry of Agriculture, and indeed for your presence, Dr. Naido, as Director of Independent Office of Evaluation, but also the Vice President of the Program Management Department of IFAD, who was with us at the opening of the workshop. And indeed, also to appreciate Dr. Ambrosio, the Country Director for Malawi, and also Ms. Sarah, the Regional Director for East and Southern African Division. Without your presence, the meeting or the workshop wouldn't have been as enriching as it has been. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, allow me to ask Mr. Nation Sawyer, who is the Director for Debt and the Aid in the Ministry of Finance, to make his closing remarks on behalf of the Secretary to the Treasury, Dr. McDonald Mafuta-Mwene. Mr. Nation Sawyer, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. A big round of applause for your excellent facilitating skills. Managing a workshop of 80 people virtually has been excellently done by your side. So we appreciate very much. And in a special way also, thanks to Joanna for an excellent presentation. Indeed, on behalf of the Secretary to the Treasury, I will be delivering these closing remarks. He would have been delivering the
Mr. Sawyer, are you around? We seem to can't hear, we can't hear you, I think, but we can see your microphone is moving. Yes.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Associate Vice President, Mr. Brown, IFAD Regional Director, Dr. Kainja, Principal Secretary for Local Government, Dr. Ambrosio, Dr. Naido, IFAD colleagues, IOA officials, directors from various departments of Malawi government, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to reiterate the strategic importance of the partnership between IFAD and the government of Malawi. And likewise, let me acknowledge the significance of the CSPE National Workshop, which we have just concluded today. The National Workshop offered the government and IFAD an opportunity to discuss findings of the evaluation. Conclusions made therein are, as well as recommendations for future programming with special focus on impact and sustainability. And true to that, the workshop has done that and even more. Among the many recommendations from this workshop, it is worth mentioning that establishing of the country office in Malawi will go a long way in strengthening the engagement between the government and IFAD, as well as between IFAD and other cooperating partners and other development actors, including private sector and the civil society organization. This is a key milestone in this partnership, as this will allow for quick identification and the capitalization on available synergies within the IFAD portfolio, as well as with other partner-supported innovations. As such, we look forward to the opening of the office in August. Associate Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me stress that the government has taken note of the challenges emanating from lack of institutional capacity in project implementation. This is something that has a serious bearing on project implementation. Allow me to express Malawi government commitment to resolve these issues in the short to medium term. It is in our interest also that projects are implemented effectively and within the programmed cost, as well as the time frame, without losing focus on the poverty impact. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lastly, allow me to express my gratitude to the Independent Office of the Evaluation for carrying out the workshop, as well as planning this workshop. My sincere gratitude also go to government colleagues, as well as project coordinators, for your collaboration during this workshop. And by extension, let me acknowledge everyone here for the participating in the workshop. Your participation made this workshop a great success. With these remarks, it is my singular honor and pleasure to declare this workshop closed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sawyer. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.